a WikiVidi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy.
La Bohème. La Bohème is an opera in 4 acts, composed by Giacomo Puccini to an Italian libretto by Luigi, Illica and Giuseppe Giacosa, based on Scènes de la Vida Bohème by Henri Murger. The world premiere performance of La Bohème was in Turin on 1 February 1896 at the Teatro Regio, conducted by the young Arturo Toscanini. Its US premiere took place the following year, 1897, in Los Angeles. Since then, La Bohème has become part of the standard Italian opera repertory, and is one of the most frequently performed operas worldwide. In 1946, 50 years after the opera's premiere, Toscanini conducted a performance of it on radio with the NBC Symphony Orchestra. This performance was eventually released on vinyl record and on compact disc. It is the only recording of a Puccini opera by its original conductor. Origin of the story. According to its title page, the libretto of La Bohème is based on Henri Murger's novel, Scènes de la Vida Bohème, a collection of vignettes portraying young bohemians living in the Latin Quarter of Paris in the 1840s. Although usually called a novel, it has no unified plot. Like the 1849 play by Murger and Théodore Barrière, the opera's libretto focuses on the relationship between Rodolfo and Mimi, ending with her death. Also like the play, the libretto combines 2 characters from the novel, Mimi and Francine, into a single Mimi character. Early in the composition stage, Puccini was in dispute with the composer Leone Cavallo, who said that he had offered Puccini a completed libretto and felt that Puccini should defer to him. Puccini responded that he had had no idea of Leone Cavallo's interest, and that having been working on his own version for some time, he felt that he could not oblige him by discontinuing with the opera. Leone Cavallo completed his own version, in which Marcello was sung by a tenor and Rodolfo by a baritone. It was unsuccessful and is now rarely performed. Much of the libretto is original. The main plots of Acts 2 and 3 are the librettist's invention, with only a few passing references to incidents and characters in Murger. Most of Acts 1 and 4 follow the novel, piecing together episodes from various chapters. The final scenes in Acts 1 and 4, the scenes with Rodolfo and Mimi, resemble both the play and the novel. The story of their meeting closely follows chapter 18 of the novel, in which the 2 lovers living in the garret are not Rodolfo and Mimi at all, but rather Jacques and Francine. The story of Mimi's death in the opera draws from 2 different chapters in the novel, one relating Francine's death, and the other relating Mimi's. The published libretto includes a note from the librettists briefly discussing their adaptation. Without mentioning the play directly, they defend their conflation of Francine and Mimi into a single character. Ci può non confare nel delicato profilo di una sola donna, quella di Mimi e di Francine. At the time, the novel was in the public domain, Murger having died without heirs, but rights to the play were still controlled by Barrière's heirs. Initial success. The world premiere performance of La Bohème took place in Turin on 1 February 1896. At the Teatro Regio and was conducted by the young Arturo Toscanini. The initial response of the audience at the first performance was subdued, and critical responses were polarized. Despite this varied introductory response, the opera quickly became popular throughout Italy and productions were soon mounted by the following companies: the Teatro di San Carlo, the Teatro Comunale di Bologna, the Teatro Costanzi, La Scala, La Fenice, Teatro Regio di Parma, Paris Opera, and the Teatro Donizetti di Bergamo. The first performance of La Bohème outside Italy was at the Teatro Colón in Buenos Aires, Argentina, on 16 June 1896. The opera was given in Alexandria, Lisbon, and Moscow in early 1897. The United Kingdom premiere took place at the Theatre Royal in Manchester, on the 22nd of April 1897. In a presentation by the Carl Rosa Opera Company, supervised by Puccini. This performance was given in English and starred Alice Esty as Mimi, Bessie MacDonald as Musetta, Robert Cunningham as Rodolfo, and William Paul as Marcello. On the 2nd of October 1897, the same company gave the opera's first staging at the Royal Opera House in London, and on the 14th of October 1897 in Los Angeles, for the opera's United States premiere. The opera reached New York City on the 16th of May 1898, when it was performed at Wallack's Theatre with Giuseppe Agostini as Rodolfo. The first production of the opera, actually produced by the Royal Opera House itself, premiered on 1 July 1899 with Nellie Melba as Mimi, Zélie de Lucane as Musetta, Fernando de Lucia as Rodolfo, and Mario Ancona as Marcello. La Bohème premiered in Germany at the Kroll Opera House in Berlin on the 22nd of June 1897. The French premiere of the opera was presented by the Opéra Comique on the 13th of June 1898 at the Théâtre des Nations. The production used a French translation by Paul Ferrier, and starred Julia Giraudin as Mimi, Jean Tiffen as Musetta, Adolphe Maréchal as Rodolfo, and Lucien Fuduri as Marcello. The Czech premiere of the opera was presented by the National Theatre on the 27th of February 1898. 20th and 21st centuries. La Bohème continued to gain international popularity throughout the early 20th century, and the Opéra Comique alone had already presented the opera 100 times by 1903. The Belgian premiere took place at Le Mans on 25 October 1900 using Ferrier's French translation, with Marie Thierry as Mimi, Leon David as Rodolfo, Eugene Charles Badiali as Marcello, sets by Pierre Davies, Armand Linen, and Albert Dubosc, and Philippe Flon conducting. The Metropolitan Opera staged the work for the first time on 26 December 1900. With Nellie Melba as Mimi, Anita Occhiolini Rizzini as Musetta, Albert Salazar as Rodolfo, Giuseppe Campanari as Marcello, and Luigi Mancinelli conducting. The opera was first performed in Brazil at the Teatro da Paz in Belém on 21 April 1900, with the Brazilian soprano Tilda Marigliano as Mimi, Maria Cavallini as Musetta, Giuseppe Agostini as Rodolfo, and Alessandro Modesti as Marcello. The conductor was Giorgio Polacco. The following year La Bohème was presented at the Teatro Amazonas in Manaus, Brazil, on 2 July 1901 with Elvira Miotti as Mimi, Mabel Nelma as Musetta, Michel Sigaldi as Rodolfo, and Enrico De Franceschi as Marcello. Other premieres soon followed. Puccini died in Brussels on 29 November 1924, and the news of his death reached Rome during a performance of La Bohème. The opera was immediately stopped, and the orchestra played Chopin's Funeral March for the stunned audience. The first production of La Bohème at the Salzburg Festival did not occur until as late as July 2012. However, that festival has not shown much interest in the operas of Puccini, only ever having one production each of Tosca and Turin. In its entire history. Critical reception. Despite the opera's popularity with audiences, Puccini has been the target of condescension by some music critics who find his music insufficiently sophisticated or difficult. The composer Benjamin Britten wrote in 1951, after 4 or 5 performances I never wanted to hear Bohème again. In spite of its neatness, I became sickened by the cheapness and emptiness of the music. Act 1. In The Four Bohemians, Garrett Marcello is painting while Rodolfo gazes out of the window. They complain of the cold. In order to keep warm, they burn the manuscript of Rodolfo's drama. Colleen, the philosopher, enters shivering and disgruntled at not having been able to pawn some books. Schaunard, the musician of the group, arrives with food, wine and cigars. He explains the source of his riches, a job with an eccentric English gentleman, who ordered him to play his violin to a parrot until it died. The others hardly listen to his tale as they set up the table to eat and drink. Schaunard interrupts, telling them that they must save the food for the days ahead. Tonight they will all celebrate his good fortune by dining at Café Momus, and he will pay. The friends are interrupted by Benoit, the landlord, who arrives to collect the rent. They flatter him and ply him with wine. In his drunkenness, he begins to boast of his amorous adventures, but when he also reveals that he is married, they thrust him from the room, without the rent payment, in comic moral indignation. The rent money is divided for their evening out in the Quartier Latin. Marcello, Schaunard, and Colleen go out, but Rodolfo remains alone for a moment in order to finish an article he is writing, promising to join his friend soon. There is a knock at the door. It is a girl who lives in another room in the building. Her candle has blown out, and she has no matches. She asks Rodolfo to light it. She is briefly overcome with faintness, and Rodolfo helps her to a chair and offers her a glass of wine. She thanks him. After a few minutes, she says that she is better and must go. But as she turns to leave, she realizes that she has lost her key. Her candle goes out in the draft, and Rodolfo's candle goes out too. The pair stumble in the dark. Rodolfo, eager to spend time with the girl, to whom he is already attracted, finds the key and pockets it, feigning innocence. He takes her cold hand and tells her of his life as a poet, then asks her to tell him more about her life. The girl says her name is Mimi, and describes her simple life as an embroiderer. Impatiently, the waiting friends call Rodolfo. He answers and turns to see Mimi bathed in moonlight. They realize that they have fallen in love. Rodolfo suggests remaining at home with Mimi, but she decides to accompany him to the Café Momus. As they leave, they sing of their newfound love. Act 2. Quartier Latin. A great crowd, including children, has gathered, with street sellers announcing their wares. The friends arrive. Rodolfo buys Mimi a bonnet from a vendor, while Colleen buys a coat and Schaunard a horn. Parisians gossip with friends, and bargain with the vendors. The children of the streets clamor to see the wares of Parpignol, the toy seller. The friends enter the Café Momus. As the men and Mimi dine at the café, Musetta, formerly Marcello's sweetheart, arrives with her rich government minister admirer, Alcindoro, whom she is tormenting. It is clear she has tired of him. To the delight of the Parisians, and the embarrassment of her patron, she sings a risque song, hoping to reclaim Marcello's attention. The ploy works. At the same time, Mimi recognizes that Musetta truly loves Marcello. To be rid of Alcindoro for a bit, Musetta pretends to be suffering from a tight shoe and sends him to the shoemaker to get her shoe mended. Alcindoro leaves, and Musetta and Marcello fall rapturously into each other's arms. The friends are presented with their bill. Schaunard's purse has gone missing and no one else has enough money to pay. The sly Musetta has the entire bill charged to Alcindoro. The sound of a military band is heard, and the friends leave. Alcindoro returns with a repaired shoe seeking Musetta. The waiter hands him the bill and, dumbfounded, Alcindoro sinks into a chair. Act 3. At the toll gate at the Barrière d'Enfer, peddlers pass through the barriers and enter the city. Mimi appears, coughing violently. She tries to find Marcello, who is currently living in a little tavern where he paints signs for the innkeeper. She tells him of her hard life with Rodolfo, who abandoned her the night before, and of Rodolfo's terrible jealousy. Marcello tells her that Rodolfo is asleep inside, and expresses concern about Mimi's cough. Rodolfo wakes up and comes out looking for Marcello. Mimi hides and overhears Rodolfo first telling Marcello that he left Mimi because of her coquettishness, but finally confessing that his jealousy is a sham. He fears she is slowly being consumed by a deadly illness. Rodolfo, in his poverty, can do little to help Mimi, and hopes that his pretended unkindness will inspire her to seek another, wealthier suitor. Out of kindness towards Mimi, Marcello tries to silence him, but she has already heard all. Her weeping and coughing reveal her presence, and Rodolfo hurries to her. Museta's laughter is heard and Marcello goes to find out what has happened. Mimi tells Rodolfo that she is leaving him, and asks that they separate amicably, but the love for one another is too strong for the pair to part. As a compromise, they agree to remain together until the spring, when the world is coming to life again, and no one feels truly alone. Meanwhile, Marcello has found Museta, and the couple quarrel fiercely about Museta's flirtatiousness, an antithetical counterpoint to the other pair's reconciliation.
Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?